Hey everybody, it's Tim and Steve, and we're in a different location tonight for our live event.
Yes, we are on the lanai here at Phantom History House with this cool art behind us.
And thank you for being here for Phantom History House Call. All right, so this is going to be really an interesting guest tonight.
Absolutely, yes. We have Gina Leslie with us tonight, who is a psychic who works in Arcadia, Florida, and has, make sure I get this right, Gina Marie's Seance room, which is inside the historic and haunted Heard Opera House in downtown Arcadia.
Very cool. So we're going to hear all about that about being a psychic in a small town and how attitudes are changing and growing. It's very cool. If you're watching, by the way, please say hello, comment at any time, ask questions for Gina as we're talking to her.
Yeah, and let us know where you're watching from. And what's really interesting about tonight, other than Gina being fantastic, and I can't wait to introduce her to you, is that I used to live in Arcadia 20 years ago. I lived in Arcadia when I was a newspaper reporter, and it sounds like it's changed quite a bit. And I'm interested to get her perspective on that as well. But enough about the past. We have a big weekend ahead of us.
That's right. We actually have some guests tonight, which we're very excited about on a weeknight. So I may have to step away because one of our rooms is supposed to show up at any time. So I may have to step away during the conversation. Yes. But we're very excited about that. And this weekend, Kristen Giesland, the Mindful Seer, will be here doing readings on Saturday. So there's still room if you want to come get some readings, because we haven't really had much opportunities for that this summer.
No, summer we slow down a little bit. We're starting to ramp up again, which is exciting. And Kristen will be here on Saturday. And after the readings on Saturday night, we are hosting indoor ghost stories around the faux fire because it's 200 degrees out here.
But it's still ghost stories by the fire.
It
is nice in the air conditioning. It is the middle of the summer.
Yeah. But there are still tickets available. We'll still have some sweet treats and some drinks.
I was going to say, I am baking. There's going to be lots of good food, the wine, all that stuff. So come have some fun on Saturday night. Join us for Ghost Stories by the Fire inside in the air.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, take a look at our event page. We have all kinds of stuff lined up for September and October into November. We got a busy couple of months ahead of us.
And hey, there's lots of people that are watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Gina's very popular.
She is very popular.
So we got the right guest tonight. So we're going to bring her on in just a second, everybody.
Hey, Jocelyn. Hey, Victor. Good to see you guys.
So glad that you guys are here. And at any point tonight, if you have questions or comments, or you want to interact in any way, please type in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from and ask your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you ready to bring her in?
I think so. I think we should bring Gina on.
All right, everybody, here we go. Da, 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 da.
Hey, Gina.
Hey, everybody. How are you doing tonight?
We're good. How are you doing tonight?
Very good.
We're excited to have you here. And this is such a small world situation because while you and I have not met in face-to-face yet, we've chatted, of course, on Facebook, and we've had a couple of phone calls. We were actually introduced by a friend of mine who met you in Arcadia and had a reading done and raved about you. Was so excited. So thank you to Daniel if you're out there watching or watching this later. We appreciate the connection. So before we dive into questions, could you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what it is that you do.
Well, my name is Gina Leslie, and I run Gina Marie's Seance room and shop. We just opened in the historic Heard Opera House. Absolutely love it there. We were definitely drawn to that area. I had investigated it 7 years ago, but originally I'm from Maryland. So I have a lot of small town stories from Maryland as well. So, but Arcadia has my heart now.
Yeah, Arcadia is such a cute, quaint little town, but I know it's like having this renaissance currently where it's kind of downtown's getting redeveloped. You're a big part of that. And what's funny is that the newspaper office that I used to work in is like right around the corner from there.
Absolutely, like literally walking distance to the Opera House doors.
Yeah, I used to walk past there all the time.
So would it be appropriate to start by saying where is Arcadia, Florida? Would that be interesting?
I think so. Okay. Yeah. And Gina, do you want to answer that question? How can people find Arcadia? Where is it in the state?
Well, if you're looking at where Port Charlotte and Sarasota are, it's kind of east of Port Charlotte and Sarasota. So about half an hour away from Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, 40 minutes away from Sarasota.
Yeah, so definitely Southwest Florida, and it is agricultural country. Lots of cattle and a lot of orange groves, if I remember
Absolutely.
right. Yeah, definitely cracker country, as they call it.
Absolutely.
So, of course, we have you on not only to talk about Arcadia, but about your presence in Arcadia. I'm very curious. You said whenever you introduced yourself that you were kind of drawn to that space or drawn to Arcadia. I wonder if you could just expand upon that a little bit.
Well, the first time I investigated it was probably about 7 years ago. I went into a paranormal investigation back when it was a antique mall, basically, just filled with tons of antiques. But
Yeah.
I was getting incredible EVP evidence when I was there. So I was definitely curious about it. And I started just basically kind of stalking their page, going to some of their events that they had, the ghost hunts that they had. I think I went on 2 of those. And then I found out that they were renting a room. And I was like, I have to jump on this. This is where I need to be. I actually asked the ghosts if I should do readings there. And I got a absolutely.
Oh,
Which
wow.
was interesting.
Now, when you say you got an absolutely, you heard it, you caught something on recording. What did?
Yes, on an SB recording. SB-17 is what I use for paranormal investigation, and I actually got an audible answer that said, "Absolutely, please do."
That's incredible. And I know that, when I spent my time in Arcadia, it really was antique malls. I think there was like a small restaurant or cafe or tea room there, which I don't know if it's still there or not. But I don't think the Opera House was operational as like an entertainment venue at that point.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is kind of what it is now, right?
Actually, now it is completely entertainment venue and small shops and small businesses.
Nice. And obviously very haunted and very active.
Absolutely, definitely. Lots of activity on security cameras. We are closing up at night. We see full body apparitions walking past the doors. It's definitely active.
That is incredible. And I want to say hi to Mark and to Kelly. Welcome, guys. Great to see you. Remember, if you have questions for Gina, please drop those in the chat. We'll do our best to ask those directly once we kind of go through the millions of questions that I have. I won't ask all of them, I promise. But one of my big questions for you, Gina, is as a psychic in a small town, what has reception been like for you? Because I think a lot of people have this stereotype in their head of what a small town's like. And, I don't want to say you're outside of the norm, but you're probably an unexpected shop, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
how has that been for you?
It's actually been surprisingly wonderful. People have been very open to it. I did not expect the reception that we got from it already, but we're already doing pretty decent business. And we've got a lot of people coming in from local areas, which is really great too, because they've been asking for stuff like this. We have 2 metaphysical shops now in the historic Opera House. We actually have Midnight Dove and the Seance room. So we have a lot of like metaphysical supplies for sale now too. It's great. It's fantastic. We're trying to bring the city into the little city.
Right. Bring in the county. You got to love the DeSoto County as a whole.
Exactly.
So what kind of work is it that you do there? Do you do tarot card readings, crystal ball? I mean, what kind of work do you do?
Basically, I started out as a palmist when I was 15 years old. I am 47 now, so I've been doing this for a really long time. I do tarot, runes, palmistry. I do spirit box sessions for people too, which is a new and interesting thing to do. That's really fun. We also do a lot of paranormal investigation in shop, which is really fun, doing like little mini paranormal investigations. And now we're also going to be co-hosting with the Opera House and doing walking tours and investigations of the Opera House, which will be really, really fun.
Okay. Well, I'll be down there for that. I haven't been back to Arcadia in a long time, so I got to definitely check this out. And we have some great questions rolling in. Hello, Kristen. Hey, Jocelyn again, and Valerie. Good to see you. Kristen has a question, and this is one of my questions for you as well. You mentioned that you were doing some readings like around 10 years old, but how did you discover you were psychic, and how did you become interested in that world?
Well, I've been seeing things since I was in the crib. So apparitions. I grew up next to a very haunted battlefield area. We were next to Bladensburg battlefield area in Maryland. And I would see soldier ghosts walking through the room. I would see all kinds of interesting stuff from the 1800s. My mom basically has gifts, and my grandmother has gifts too. It was kind of passed down through the family. So I started early, and I had a book that I read from front to back and it was called Fortune Telling for Fun and Profit. That's what I
Okay.
started out when I was 10.
Hey, you need a primer, right? You got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
Started
amazing.
reading for family and friends afterwards too, to practice.
Okay. And I mean, if you saw apparitions, obviously you knew something was going on. Were you able to tell that those were apparitions and not, just like a neighbor walking by, for example?
Well, judging from the historical era of clothing, it couldn't have been. Definitely lots of 1800s ghosts and there was a lot of, I'm trying to think of Gettysburg and Bladensburg were close together in time period. So there were Civil War ghosts around that area as well.
Okay. And, a lot of tragedy around that, which of course keeps that energy moving and make it palpable.
Absolutely.
So here's a question for you. You mentioned a spirit box, and Carla's watching. Hey, Carla, good to see you. She said this is very interesting, but she's wondering if you could explain what a spirit box is and how it works.
Well, basically, a spirit box is something that we use on paranormal shows, but it sweeps through radio stations incredibly fast so that there's no way that you can get an audible answer. So it sweeps past the radio stations very fast. And when you actually have something that's coming through that's an extended voice, you know that it's spirit voices coming through. And we get a lot of direct answers to our questions too. That's another thing that really helps with the spirit box. It does have loud cycling through sounds. Like you definitely hear a lot of outside noise, but it's definitely a good tool if you're investigating haunted locations to have one.
Absolutely. And one of our friends who's watching, Victor, works with spirit boxes a lot. And I've had an opportunity to watch him do that. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of training, I think, to kind of know what to listen for and to pay attention. So I'm amazed that not amazed that you're able to do that. I'm impressed that you're able to do that because I know it's very hard. It's something that I would struggle with. And I think that one of the other things that led to that question was that there was a comment, and Tim stepped away, so I have to figure out how to do this on my own, which is scary. Jocelyn mentioned that one of Gina's TikTok videos, her spirit box moved. Do you know what she's talking about, and where were you investigating when that happened?
We were actually down by the Tree of Life in Arcadia, and it actually moved on its own, at least a half an inch. Nobody was touching it, and it moved twice.
So were you asking us specific questions when it did that, or? Yes,
definitely. I was asking, was anybody hung around that tree or hung on that tree? And we definitely got, I was shot was the thing that came through right before it moved.
Wow, I was shot.
I was shot came through.
Okay. Well, as cute and quaint as Arcadia is, it has quite an interesting history. I don't know all of it, but I remember when I worked in there, I researched it a little bit. And, like a lot of Florida, it was really the Wild West of the state. There was a lot of lawlessness and people who thought they were following the law who weren't quite really following the law. So there's a lot of that tragedy around. So I'm glad we've moved past that. And it looks like Victor has investigated there too. He said, or at the Opera House, excuse me. He said, I was on the stairs just off stage, purposely didn't have a recorder or video equipment, raised my hands and said, I have nothing with me, and asked, can you please let me know you are here? A male voice said, is there anyone there? Is there anyone there? It was a disembodied voice and it blew me away. So to your point, the Opera House itself is very active.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I get voices on my surveillance. And then I also get motion activations on my surveillance cameras. For some odd reason, 7:30 in the morning to 12 o'clock in the afternoon is very active. And we're not even in the building most times at that time. We don't go until 3.
So I'm curious, do you happen to know who any of these spirits may be?
Definitely. JJ Hurd is one of them. I have seen his full body apparition with the top hat walking into his office after I was closing. I actually thought somebody broke in the building and I had to go through all of the rooms and just peek in to make sure nobody had. Okay. Door wide open, and they had closed and locked that door before they had left. So
incredible.
Definitely incredible kinds of activity there. Even in the alleys behind the Opera House, you get audible whispers on your recordings. If you have your camera out and you're just recording, you can hear audible whispers sometimes on your recordings.
Wow. So obviously it's more than just Mr. Hurd who's there then. There's several other entities or personalities. Okay.
Definitely seen, there was a woman that we call Freckles. We love her to death. She's awesome. We kind of call her she's kind of like a house ghost mom. But Judith We love her to death. And there's actually photos of her in the seance room. Lots of historical memorabilia from the opera house itself in the seance room. But
Okay.
a couple of those spirits are actually definitely in there.
So tell me a little bit about the seance room itself. I mean, I know that's the name of kind of like the shop, but there is
Yes.
an actual seance room within
In the
the
back.
shop, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that, and do you use it?
I do. I'm going to be doing it a lot more coming up soon with holiday season.
Okay.
Basically, I hold group events up to 6 to 8 people in the back, and I do group readings. So basically, I hold mini seances in the back.
Okay. Okay. And obviously, people are coming to those. Are they mostly like local folks, or people coming in from Sarasota, or is it a little mix of everything?
I've actually had some people come as far as Maryland to come in the seance room and get group
That's
readings. So it's
fantastic.
great. Yeah, definitely have a lot of people from all over.
And that says a lot about your abilities and your friendliness. I mean, you're just so warm and genuine, and I love talking to you. And I'm so hopeful that you can come up and see us here at Phantom History House before things get too crazy down there. Because, like you said, the holiday season is coming up, and of course that means spooky season and Halloween. So I know that you'll be busy, and I know we'll be busy, but we'll make it work. So Jocelyn has a question about the dolls in your seance room. Within in parentheses, a big nope for me. She's wondering, where did you obtain them? And tell me a little bit about the dolls as well.
They actually belong to the manager's kids. They brought them in when I first started the seance room, and they move on their own. We've gotten a lot of SB stuff from them. They've told us their names. One of them likes tips. He said he wanted tips. Nobody was paying him,
Wow.
which I found interesting, but we definitely have some activity coming from them as well, and he can come and meet them at the shop.
So did the dolls have energy in them before they were given to you, or do you think that whatever's in the opera house?
I think that they had energy beforehand, but it definitely feels like they are little vessels that things can jump in and out of, because I've seen different kinds of spirits jumping into the dolls. So
Okay.
definitely interesting.
So somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of experience in this world may hear that and say, this is terrifying, or I don't want anything to do with that. Obviously, you're like, oh, it's cool. This is what they do. I'm good. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why you're so comfortable with this and why people maybe should not be as afraid as they think they should be.
Well, I think it's just because I've been seeing things since I was a little kid, so I've gotten used to it. And a lot of it is trying to deprogram your fear.
Right.
A lot of people are afraid that spirits are all angry, but that's not what I've encountered. Most people, they're still people, but they basically just want to stick around their homes and visit. And we just have to learn to live to get along with them, because they're everywhere.
I'm so glad you said that, because Vic, who's watching, my paranormal investigative friend here in Tampa, not too far from me, always says the same thing. They're everywhere. They can kind of go wherever they want, and the personality that you have in life is likely the personality you're going to take with you.
Absolutely.
Into whatever it is that's next. Are these spirits stuck? I mean, because we hear that a lot too. You know, they need help moving on, or they don't know what's going on. What's your take on that?
It's funny because you run across a lot of different ones, a lot of different types of spirits. There are some that are stuck, that are still replaying these traumas that they were in. We do have others that seem like almost guardians of locations. I think Herd basically is kind of like a guardian of that area and of that opera house, because he built it and has a personal attachment to it. So I think a lot of it is personal attachment. And sometimes we leave discarded pieces of ourselves at these locations, and they just replay.
Yeah, I think so. That's a great explanation, and I think you're absolutely right. You know, there's the active versus residual, energy in all of its forms. This is an interesting question from Kristen, and she's asked me this before too, and I don't ever really know the right answer. So why can some people see spirits and others can't, in your opinion? It's a very good question.
That is a really good question. Some people are just born with the gift. I really honestly think that some people are born with this innate ability to see through things that are normal. And then I believe other people, I think everybody has a little bit of it in them. And I definitely think that you can develop that. And I've spent my whole life trying to read different kinds of religious material, trying to develop those skills. And I think if you're really interested in it and you want to develop it, you can.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I know that there's a lot of workshops, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of things that you can use to kind of and enhance what you're able to do. What is your take on kids and their ability? Because I've always heard that children are much more in tune than some of us adults.
I think because they haven't had a lot of the religious constructs pushed into their heads, that they're more open-minded. So I think that lends more to the fact that they can actually see, because they're also closest to, being born. They haven't had that brainwashing that they need to cut that kind of stuff out. I think if we made it less scary to the little kids, that they would be a lot easier keeping those gifts. I just think it would be a lot easier for them to keep those gifts if we didn't scare them so much into thinking that it was a bad thing.
Yeah, I like how you said that. And, I feel like I said Tim's name 3 times and he showed up. So welcome back.
I'm back.
Appreciate you being here.
No, but I like that sentiment very much. Like, I think there's a lot of things that kids are scared out of doing, so they might love to sing, and then somebody tells them, oh, you don't sound good, and they stop singing, and that's just all tragic.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I used to have a spirit that used to haunt my old house, but he would only show up when things were about to happen. It was like a warning. And when I realized he was warning me of bad things that were going to happen, and I listened to him, I was like, oh my gosh, he's my friend. He's trying to keep me out of trouble.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah. And, this is perfect timing for this question and statement to come in from Jocelyn. She said, when you first moved into the Opera House, I recall you mentioning something about a bad spirit that was impersonating a demon. Is that something that you would encounter often, and what did you do to get him out?
Interesting. What we do is we like to cleanse the whole entire Opera House. We actually have a bunch of people who are very gifted with spiritual things, and we have certain means of protection that we lay out around the Opera House just to make sure that the negative spirits don't come in. It's basically the same as blessing a house. Just kind of like a house cleansing, but we did that with the Opera House, and we don't have any issues with negative spirits coming in anymore. Most of them are really kind.
Good. And, you hear, I know it gets TV ratings, demon this, demon that, evil spirit, it's not as prevalent as people seem to want to think, right? It's not a normal thing.
Exactly. It is definitely not normal. Definitely not normal. I've only encountered a few things like that over my years of doing this. So I don't think pushing demons on everything is a good way to do it, because it's definitely not that. Most of them are grumpy spirits that just don't want you in their space, and that's why they're trying to scare you out.
Right. Yeah. We've all met grumpy people before, so, I get
exactly.
it.
I resonate with this somehow.
Get off my lawn.
No, it's okay. No, but and not to I probably shouldn't say this, but I think sometimes people like to sort of blame everything on demons or devils, and to me that's just really lazy.
It is.
But I didn't mean to go down that road, maybe. So
it is, though. It is. And people really shouldn't be afraid of it, because 99.9% of the time it is definitely a friendly spirit. It's just they're in your same space and you're sharing that space with them, and you need to learn how to get along with them to be able to have a good relationship with them.
Right. And this is a good follow-up question from Jocelyn, who said, how did you know that he was impersonating a demon and wasn't actually one? Was there
because it changed forms in front of me. It literally changed forms in front of me. It was a little scary. It pretended to be something, and then it skittered up the walls and across the ceiling, and I was like, oh, okay, we need to get rid of this thing.
Wow. Yeah,
wow.
But it was just grumpy. It wasn't evil.
Yeah, that one I think was not so pleasant old lady who was just trying to scare people, honestly.
Yeah. Well, if you're a ghost haunting a place and you know that people are afraid of demons, then you would probably say, I'm this demon, and until they
anything to get them out of my space. Right?
Yeah,
exactly. And that happens a lot.
Speaking of grumpy demons, you see Mark said spirits have bad days too.
That's an
interesting comment.
Yeah.
Do they really? I would assume they were always the same.
Oh no, they have bad days too.
Well, again,
I guess that makes sense.
They're people just without the physical form. We all have bad days.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, going back to the small town and psychic thing. Have you had any? It sounds like it's gone very well, and you've been very welcome. Have you had any challenges with doing what you do in the small town? Any issues at all that you've run into that you want to talk about?
Definitely. There are some people who get a little just taken aback at what I do, and they do the Bible quotes and all the fun stuff. That never really helps anybody, because I think people really need to start respecting everybody else's religion. It's a big thing. We have multicultural religions across the whole entire United States, and we need to realize people have different religious beliefs.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you say that, because I mean, this is another form of religion. I mean, it's a way that you interact with the spiritual realm, just like somebody from Catholic faith or the Muslim faith interacts with the spiritual realm in their way. So I'm glad you said that. And I think that it's so important, and I don't use the term, but important we'll stick with, that you are providing this service in a place that's unexpected.
Absolutely.
Yeah. People think small town, metaphysical, spiritual, and I think of Casadega. They don't think of Arcadia, but that seems to be shifting.
That's what we're hoping to do, is kind of create a little tiny Casadega, but over on our side, because it's needed here. It's definitely needed here. And Arcadia has so many incredible paranormal locations to visit that it's definitely something that people really need to be seeing. I don't think people realize that Arcadia even exists, but when they realize how haunted it is, it's going to bring in some tourism that the economy definitely needs. So it can help out the whole town.
You're right. We, a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so now, we had a conversation with a woman named Christy Sumner, who is in Tennessee, who is a doctor, and she studies, tourism and dark tourism, and how it works and how it really can fuel an economy. And I know that a lot of what the Heard Opera House does and what you do there, that those funds go to restoring the building as well, right? Because it has had some rough days.
Absolutely. Actually, what we are doing with the Heard Opera House now is we're going to be co-hosting ghost hunts. And that is going to actually go towards the renovation and the rebuilding of the Opera House. So we definitely are looking to get a lift. We need people to come forward and try to help out the location a little bit, because we just got through the last hurricane and it was a mess. I mean, it was an absolute mess.
Yeah. And
Hurricane Ian really, really took it out on that whole town.
Absolutely. And, and there's been so many, I mean, I know Debbie was rough this past weekend, but Hurricane Charlie, back in 2004, I think it was horrible and devastating to Arcadia. And I know there's been tragedies like that going way, way back.
Absolutely. And it's definitely a place worth keeping up and keeping restored, because you don't get a downtown like that where all the architecture is still back in the early 1900s. It's rare. The whole entire Main Street is still very, very old school. Very old school. I love it.
Yeah. It's we were kind of joking a little bit before we started talking. It's like going back in time, and it really is. I mean, you get to downtown Arcadia, it doesn't feel like 2024.
Oh no, definitely not. You feel like you're jumping back in time.
Yeah, and which is I love history, and I always joke here at Phantom History House that if something's going to haunt me, I want to know who and what it is, so I know what I'm dealing with. So I want to learn the history behind that. And to Carla's point, who's watching, so fully transparent, Carla's my best friend. We've known each other for almost 30 years now, and she and I both lived in Arcadia, and for a while we lived in a house in Arcadia together that she was convinced was haunted. And I'll say that this was before I was very into, I liked spooky stuff, but I wasn't really into paranormal investigating or the history of stuff. So I regret that now. If I could go back 20 years and talk to me then, I would have been like, listen to what she's saying and start researching. What can you find?
Exactly. There's a lot of really cool historical books about Arcadia and the history too. I'm reading one right now on Bowen Mazel. Absolutely phenomenal reading. He was just a character, and he's one of those spirits that actually shows up at the Opera House a lot on my equipment. He definitely comes through the Phasma box, and I've gotten him on SB a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to who it is that you're communicating with, and you wouldn't know that without having the history.
Exactly. It's funny because a lot of the times I actually had to go and research to try to find who it was that I was looking at. I was like, I can see what this person looks like. And then I'm finding them in the historical photos and going, oh my God, this matches up. It's wild. It's a little wild.
That is really neat.
Yeah, I love that.
Taking me on a journey, that's for sure.
No kidding.
Well, and I love that you guys are talking about the small town that's like they've stay true to the original look of it and all. Like, I just feel like that's such a lost thing in the States. We don't seem to value that very much sometimes. And so I love it when you can find sort of an authentic place that has the beautiful buildings that were built back in the day that have still been well cared for and remain there. I think that's really special. I love to visit those places.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I see a road trip for us soon back down to Arcadia.
Thanks everybody
Gina,
that's watching, by the way, and making comments. Keep those coming.
Absolutely. And this is another good question from Jocelyn. What is your take, Gina, on some of these TV shows that focus on the paranormal? Do you watch them? What is your take on them? Because I know we all have mixed feelings.
It's so funny because I think because I started watching out for paranormal stuff with Ghost Hunters and some of the other teams on TV. I didn't like the fact that they were screaming and freaking out and making it seem like everything was a demon when it clearly was not. It fed the fear instead of piquing people's curiosity.
Right.
I don't like stuff like that. I like shows like The Dead Files, where they actually investigated the locations, found the historical things that were matching up with the things that people were experiencing in homes. That's
Right.
the kind of stuff I like to see.
To your point, not everything is worth, running out of the room screaming from. It's good TV.
Well,
but
they
it's not
have to
necessarily
assume that people want to see that or they won't watch.
I think that's part of it. Yeah, it has to do with
But
the ratings.
doesn't speak very highly of the TV viewer.
Exactly.
Well, look at what's out on TV. So there's that.
But I mean,
Yeah.
but you're right. There are ways to do it that are a little more elevated than that, and seem to work great.
Well, and to your point, Dead Files is a really good example of that. And I know that years ago, they went to Ybor City and investigated the Don Vicente.
Yes.
Yeah, and we did a Phantom History episode on the Don Vicente, which is in our archive on the website. And listening to them talk about Dead Files coming in and what they had seen was all about the history. It used to be a medical clinic, and they had a morgue, and this is how it was all tied in. And this is something that Victor just wrote that I didn't realize. He said that, if I can find it, I want to get into the old morgue across the street from the Heard Opera House. I didn't know there was one there.
Yes, there is. There is. The owner of the building isn't too friendly with paranormal investigators, but we're going to try to get her into eventually letting us in.
got to warm her up a little bit, right?
Exactly. I think if she gets a chance to know us a little bit better, she'll let us in.
Well, so
But
I
it
haven't
is fascinating.
heard this whole conversation, so I don't want to jump in and say something the wrong. But isn't that sort of the premise of all of this? Is that people have to get to know you and trust you? Have you already had that conversation?
No.
I mean, like that to me would be the trick. Is right. Like that's how I feel like it is here. People are very nervous. Like, what is this? Why is there a skeleton out front of this house? And what is this paranormal? And then they come in and they meet us and they see what we're doing and they see what our intent is, and they calm down. So I feel like that's really the trick, isn't it, Gina? If you're in a place where people are nervous or sort of predisposed to be scared of something, you have to win them over by showing them that you're a good person, that you're doing good work, and you're there to help people. Like that's sort of the bottom line of growing the acceptance.
Exactly. That is. It really is. Because I think the fear of the unknown is haunting everyone. It really does haunt everybody. But when you actually get a chance to meet some people who do stuff like we do, it's fascinating when you actually get a chance to sit down and talk to them.
That's so true. And, it goes back to, kind of how we started our conversation. A mutual friend, mutual acquaintance, introduced us. And he said the same thing. He was a little bit spooked out. He wasn't really sure if he wanted to do it. You won him over like crazy. So again, Daniel, thank you so much for the connection. He called me like immediately. It's just like, oh my gosh, you got to meet this woman. She's fantastic. So thank you for what you're doing for the paranormal community of opening those doors. And I think one thing people don't understand as well is that if they're not interested, you're not going to force feed them a reading.
Never.
That's how it works, right?
Exactly. Never. I think people, when they come into the shop and they see that I'm selling holy water from Lourdes and little mini rosaries, they feel a little bit less scared. But I think that honestly, like just showing them how this is not frightening. This is something that I was born with, and trying to make sure that people know that there are people like me out there. Trying to take away that fear is my goal right now, and especially with getting the Seance shop running. I definitely want people to see that it's not so scary.
Right. I mean, we did the same thing here when we opened Phantom History House. We had an open house. We wanted to show people that we weren't, summoning weird stuff from the woods behind the house. That's not what it was about. It was celebrating this community. And here's a couple of questions from Jocelyn about what you do specifically, Gina. I got to lean in because I can't see you. Do you sell potions or different items to self-cleanse? And do you offer virtual readings?
I actually do offer virtual readings. And I do have a few self-made perfumes that I do, one for protection and one for love. But other than that, I don't really do potions. We do have almost a full apothecary coming to Midnight Dove, which is the little store that's right around the corner from us. But they basically carry a lot of the metaphysical supply stuff that you'd be needing to cleanse a home or do anything that you need for that.
So have you already talked about how they would reach her?
Not yet.
Okay, so if somebody was interested in a virtual reading, Gina, what do they do? How do they find you?
Okay, you can definitely find me on Facebook, Gina Marie Seance Shop. Basically, just go up to the top, and my main profile is linked on there. So that'll take you directly to my site, and you can book a reading through contacting me through phone or email.
Awesome.
Yeah, and of course we have it in your Facebook link tagged in this description of this. So come to the Phantom History webpage if you have trouble finding Gina and find this.
Or just send us a note if you can't find her, and we'll connect you for sure.
Yeah, we know where she is. We can find her now for you.
Absolutely.
Well, we've taken already more than a half hour of your time. So as we kind of wrap things up, what is the message that you want to get out to people who are watching this or who are they're local in Arcadia who may not have set foot in the shop yet or in the Heard Opera House? What is your takeaway or what you'd like to share with people who are watching?
What I'd really love to share with people is that we're open. We have so many events going on. So definitely check out the Historic Heard Opera House website. Definitely to keep informed on all of the upcoming events that we've got going on, because we've got a lot coming up, especially during spooky season. So definitely keep involved. We've got music classes, we've got art classes, we've got metaphysical classes coming up soon. We've got paranormal events. So we've got all kinds of stuff going on. No more nothing to do in town.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, this is a good question from Carla. And, we will find an answer to this because we don't have it just yet. But she wants to know, when is Gina coming to Phantom History House? So we are going to work on that.
Yes. Hopefully soon. I would love to.
We would love that very much. Did you see these notes? Should I read these?
Yeah, please do.
All right, so Erica says, yay, Gina, so proud of you. The girls still talk about you from our visit to your Gina Marie Seance room. And Mark says, she's amazing. Love ya. And everybody's really impressed. Carrie says, she's adorable. She's a breath of fresh air. People would find her very refreshing. So I think you're doing exactly what I was talking about, like be friendly and accessible and let people see that you're here for the good. And that's how we break down all these barriers.
Yeah. Exactly. And when they see like a little tiny fairy looking girl, like running a paranormal tour, if I'm not afraid of it, you shouldn't be afraid of it either.
Good point.
That's very valid. I just got to ask, how tall are you, Gina?
5'2", barely.
Okay, well, you can protect us.
She's not afraid of the ghosts, and so see,
I like that.
That's awesome. That's really funny.
Yeah, and and that's kind of the thing that you and I talked about when we connected a few weeks ago on Zoom on our initial conversation. Is I liked how bubbly you were, how personable you were, not scary at all, and so welcoming. So thank you for sharing all of this with us tonight, and of course with everybody who tuned in to watch.
Thank you everybody. It was really great, Gina. We definitely want you to come. See the place. Stay with us. So let us know when. We'll figure that out.
Yes.
That sounds like a plan.
All right. And make sure everybody is all good. Gina is truly the purest of souls. You can't really top that. So I think that's
what a lovely compliment. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Gina, you were wonderful.
Thank you so much. You guys were wonderful too. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an honor.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we look forward to talking to you again, and we'll be talking soon about a Phantom History episode that we've talked about. So pay attention to that. And everybody, thanks so much for tuning in and watching tonight.
Thanks for watching. We're here every Wednesday night, 7 Eastern. So keep watching. This has been great. Gina, you were awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so
Check out
much.
our events page. Come see us the next couple months. We got a lot of stuff going on.
You got to stay here during the spooky season. We're going to be all decorated. We have events all the time. That's the time you have to come visit everybody. So come do it.
Check us out. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Definitely. See you soon. Thank you so much.